Somewhere in the Alabama River Valley, between the Cotton Estates and the Old Creek Territories, there is a sealed courthouse record that local historians refuse to discuss. It contains the disturbing testimonies of 7 enslaved people from Willow Bend Plantation, who described ceremonies their mistress, Mrs. Helena Rutledge, conducted in the cellar during 1845. Ceremonies held in complete darkness while she spoke languages none of them recognized. So disturbing were these testimonies that the court sealed them indefinitely. What these 7 people saw was not mere superstition. It was something far more calculating, rooted in knowledge that no plantation mistress should have acquired. Before we continue with the story of Helena Rutledge and the inexplicable events at Willow Bend Plantation, if you're fascinated by historical mysteries that blur the line between documented fact and unspeakable truth, subscribe to the Forgotten Liturgy right now and hit that notification bell. Leave a comment telling me what state or city you're listening from. The truth about Willow Bend begins in the autumn of 1843, when Montgomery County was a crossroads of old and new Alabama. Cotton ruled absolutely, and the town was growing rapidly. Willow Bend Plantation, a grand 3-story brick house, sat 7 miles southwest of town, encompassing 800 acres, much of it covered by old-growth forest where creek burial grounds lay, a place even practical men avoided. Beneath the elegant house lay a full-length cellar, including what was called the wine room. Samuel Rutledge, a wealthy shipper, purchased Willow Bend in 1837. In 1835, he had married Helena Prescott of Savannah when she was 19 and he was 47, a marriage of wealth and family connection. They moved to Willow Bend with 63 enslaved people. In the spring of 1843, Samuel died suddenly, thrown from his horse. Helena became a widow at 27, inheriting everything. Most widows would have remarried or sold the property, but Helena did neither. She dismissed the harsh overseer, Garrett Phelps, and announced to the enslaved community that she would manage the plantation herself. While unusual, this was not unprecedented. What truly set Helena apart, planting seeds of unease in both the enslaved workers and white society, was the way she conducted herself in the months following Samuel's death. Helena Rutledge's behavior became increasingly peculiar. She spent hours in the library reading old mysterious volumes in unfamiliar languages and began taking frequent trips to Montgomery, visiting lawyers, the county clerk, and most strangely, a German cartographer named Wilhelm Brenner, who specialized in detailed property surveys and historical maps. The first of the notorious ceremonies occurred on March 13, 1845. Esther, the house cook, was ordered to thoroughly scrub the large cellar chamber, the wine room, removing all light sources. On the night of March 12th, 3 women arrived in a covered carriage, cloaked and hooded, and were led directly to the cellar by Helena. Celia, Esther's daughter, overheard the ritual. Peeking through the slightly ajar cellar door, she heard 4 women speaking in measured, formal tones in a language she didn't recognize. Then, Helena's clear command. "We bind ourselves to the purpose. We bind ourselves to the method. We bind ourselves to the future that will not be denied." The words were echoed, followed by the sound of pages turning and a rhythmic metal-on-stone striking. Finally, Helena declared, "The first mark is made. The first boundary is established." When Esther served breakfast, she noticed a small, dark, precise mark on Helena's left wrist, a symbol of 2 intersecting lines with a circle at their joining point. By May, the pattern of midnight meetings repeated every 3 weeks, and identical marks began appearing on the wrists of other wealthy white women in Montgomery society. Helena was observed reading old worn books in non-European languages. Then, in early May, she made a critical decision. She selected 7 enslaved people: Esther Celia Moses, Isaiah, Rachel Thomas, and Benjamin, moving them closer to the main house and designating them for exclusive house service, giving them constant proximity to her activities. It was Rachel, the young woman tending the gardens, who first noticed changes in the cellar during cleaning. Deliberate scratches on the floor, small piles of burned paper ash, and a strange residual warmth in the stone walls. In late May, Rachel watched Helena return from town carrying a package wrapped in canvas, roughly the size of a large book. Helena locked the library after placing the canvas-wrapped package inside, a place previously accessible to all. The next midnight meeting on June 3rd involved 5 women, not 4. Celia, deliberately positioned to listen, heard the same foreign language and a new smell wafting up. sharp and metallic, like oxidizing blood. Helena's English words confirmed the ritual's progress. The second mark is made. The second boundary is established. We are closer to the completion than any who came before us. When a visitor asked, "How many remain?" Helena terrifyingly replied, 7. 7 more and the work of 20 years will bear fruit. Everything they said was impossible will manifest in physical form. The unbearable summer heat was now accompanied by the pressure of this countdown. Moses, using his experience, began tracking Helena's visits to Montgomery. He noted her regular hours-long meetings with the German cartographer Wilhelm Brenner and visits to a lawyer and a doctor. Most intriguingly, she made monthly trips to a print shop operated by Cyrus Greenwald, often returning with official-looking papers and printed materials. In July, Benjamin, the youngest of the 7, made a breakthrough. While organizing the library, he secretly read one of Helena's volumes, an old book written in English titled A True Account of the Mysteries Practiced by the Women of the Carpathian Territories. The book described non-magical, methodical rituals used by women to secure power and influence in societies that denied them both, through precise sequences of actions and blood contracts, to literally bind the future to their will. This confirmed for the enslaved community that Helena was following a specific, powerful system. The August meeting brought another critical piece of evidence. Isaiah positioned himself near a ground-level cellar window. The women had brought light, a steady, cold, blue-white phosphorescent glow. Isaiah saw the 5 women seated in a circle, and Helena produced a small silver knife. She pressed the blade against her own palm, letting 3 drops of blood fall onto the pages of the open book in the center. The other women followed suit. Helena's voice carried clearly. The 6th mark is made. The 6th boundary is established. We approach the moment when property and power will pass through our hands and remain there unbreakable, undeniable. As the meetings continued, whispers circulated in Montgomery society about Helena's strange seclusion, but her wealth ensured tolerance. In early September, Esther overheard 2 visitors discussing legal documents, property transfers, and inheritance laws, connecting the strange rituals directly to tangible financial control. During a meeting overheard by Esther, one visiting woman expressed frustration over a property dispute. Helena's reply was cold and definitive. When we complete the 7th mark, such claims will fail. The binding ensures it. She asserted that property passing through their hands would transcend legal interpretation. Another visitor questioned the timing, but Helena, citing the German cartographer Wilhelm Brenner, insisted. The calculations are precise. The 21st is the proper date. Everything must be exact. The method is scientific, not supernatural. With the final ceremony scheduled for September 21st, just 2 weeks away, the 7 selected enslaved people faced an impossible dilemma. Moses knew that intervening would result in brutal punishment, as no white authority would believe their testimony against a wealthy woman. Their plan, born of desperation, was simple. Observe, remember every detail, and prepare to run if necessary. On September 19th, Helena gathered them, and with an edge of excitement and fear, ordered them to remain strictly in their quarters on the night of the 21st, assuring them that what she was doing doesn't threaten you, and that things would return to normal afterward. Moses provided the necessary assent, but none of them believed her. The night of September 21st, 1845, arrived with a near full moon. Esther revealed a crucial detail. The night before, Helena had insisted she prepare a specific ritualistic meal, roast chicken with herbs specified by Latin names and a medicinal tea, which Helena consumed at exactly 6 p.m., checking a pocket watch to ensure precision. Moses deduced, she's preparing herself. She needs to be in a specific state, physical and mental. At 11:30 p.m., the covered carriage arrived, bringing 5 women. Isaiah watched as the 6 figures, Helena and the 5 visitors, gathered briefly on the front steps, their voices carrying an edge of nervousness. One woman questioned the calculations again, but Helena replied with absolute confidence. Wilhelm checked them 3 times. Everything aligns tonight in a way that won't occur again for another 19 years. There's no room for doubt. The women then entered the house, making final preparations on the main floor before descending to the cellar for the final binding ceremony. The lights descended to the cellar, plunging the main house into darkness. In the cabin, the 7 watchers felt a strange physical manifestation, a pressure in their ears and a taste of copper, a subtle wrongness that propelled them to the cellar window. Looking in, they saw the 6 women seated in the circle, illuminated by the strange blue-white light of a chemical lamp. Helena was reciting a script, establishing boundaries that transcend individual mortality and extend through generations. The recitation stressed that this was science, not sorcery, using precise application of principle to shape probability itself. Before the final mark, a woman named Catherine Drummond voiced a doubt. Once we make this 7th mark, we bind ourselves as much as we bind the future. After each woman affirmed her commitment, Helena announced, "With this 7th mark, we bind ourselves complete. Let the property we claim remain in our hands and the hands of our daughters." Helena then made a deeper cut across her palm and let 7 drops of blood fall onto the book. Each woman followed suit, 42 drops total, which caused a faint shimmer on the parchment. She then produced small tokens, jewelry or metal objects, inscribed with legal descriptions of the claimed properties, and placed them on the book, tapping each with a silver hammer. By metal to metal, by blood to intention, by word to outcome, we forge the binding. The women then read papers in the strange vibrating language. The blue-white light intensified, causing the air in the cellar to warp and bend, making the women appear to flicker. Then it stopped. Helena closed the book. "It is done. The method is complete. The binding is established." She declared that the manifestation of their bound future would become evident within 6 lunar cycles, by the new moon of March next year. Though one woman questioned the result, Helena was certain, citing historical proof that this works. It has always worked. As the women gathered their things and left, the pressure in the air and the copper taste faded. The 7 watchers fled back to their cabin, carrying the knowledge that they had witnessed the completion of a ritual that aimed to rewrite the legal future of Montgomery County's wealthiest women. The women's carriage departed quickly, leaving the 7 witnesses in a state of shocked confusion in the cabin. Rachel whispered her disappointment, asking if that was truly all the grand preparation was for, just blood and words and waiting. Moses offered a rational explanation, suggesting the ceremony was purely psychological. Perhaps the wealthy women were simply playing at power to cope with the fear of losing their wealth, but Esther insisted the results might take time to manifest. Benjamin reminded them of the European texts that documented specific cases of women securing property against impossible odds. Moses countered that perhaps the magic wasn't in the blood, but in the belief the ritual inspired, which then changed their actions in the real world. However, they couldn't entirely dismiss the shimmer and the strange pressure they had felt. None of them slept that night, waiting for some sign of change. Helena emerged at breakfast looking exhausted but satisfied, possessing a new pronounced confidence that seemed to transcend legal documents. The midnight meetings ceased, and Willowbend returned to its normal rhythm. But the 7 witnesses watched closely. In early October, a letter arrived from Savannah. Esther overheard Helena gasp with satisfaction. A distant cousin, whom Helena had never met, had died unexpectedly, naming her heir to a valuable commercial property. When the visiting lawyer expressed surprise at the unexpected bequest, Helena simply stated with chilling certainty, "Some things are meant to be." Mid-October brought further corroboration. Moses overheard a conversation between Helena and Wilhelm Brenner, the cartographer. Brenner confirmed the perfect planetary alignment on September 21st, adding that he had found 13 documented historical cases in Europe of women who performed similar ceremonies and subsequently experienced remarkable fortunes and improbable resolution of inheritance disputes. Helena dismissed the idea of coincidence. Coincidence is what people call pattern when they lack the courage to acknowledge design. The pattern became undeniable in November when Mrs. Catherine Drummond, one of the ceremony participants, won a legal case against her late husband's business partner, securing full control of a shipping company that everyone expected her to lose. The rational explanation was now struggling against a growing pattern of improbable but undeniable outcomes. The Montgomery newspapers covered Mrs. Drummond's victory extensively, noting that the judge's ruling seemed to contradict precedents and that her documentation was irrefutable evidence, almost as if the case built itself. Rachel read the article aloud, but Thomas suggested it was merely meticulous planning, not magic. Yet the timing was jarring. The case was decided on November 3rd, exactly 6 lunar cycles after the final ceremony. The pattern accelerated. On November 17th, Sarah Vaughan's daughter was announced heir to her father's estate, despite having brothers, a highly unusual circumstance. By January 1846, all 6 participating women were benefiting from extraordinary legal and financial circumstances. Property disputes resolving in their favor, unexpected inheritances, and business ventures succeeding beyond reasonable odds. The 7 enslaved witnesses wrestled with the same question. Was this merely elaborate theater used for confidence, or a dark method that actually worked? Esther finally articulated a pragmatic truth. Maybe it doesn't matter whether it's real or pretending. Maybe the important thing is that it works. The outcome, securing property and power, was what mattered. Moses worried that documenting it would only make them sound insane. In March 1846, exactly 6 months after the ceremony, Helena met with 2 participants, comparing outcomes. Catherine Drummond reported 11 of 13 manifestations resolved in her favor. Helena stated her own results, 14 of 15. The method works just as the texts promised. She confirmed that reinforcement was unnecessary. What we've bound remains bound. Driven by the need for a record, Moses and Benjamin secretly began writing a document detailing everything they had witnessed. However, in June 1846, Helena discovered the pages during an inspection. Standing over the frozen witnesses, she calmly read their testimony. Helena then offered her final explanation. What I did was no more sinister than what lawyers do when they find loopholes. No more supernatural than what doctors do when they apply scientific principles most people don't understand. She insisted the binding worked through psychology and probability, not magic. She burned the pages, demanded silence, and promised to treat them fairly. But Esther, emboldened, asked the final question. Did it really work? Helena smiled slightly, leaving them with an ambiguous yet terrifying answer. Look at my circumstances now versus a year ago. Look at the circumstances of the women who participated with me. Draw your own conclusions. She concluded that sometimes the most powerful magic is simply refusing to accept limitations others try to impose. They lived with that uncertainty, witnessing the continued prosperity of the women, forever unable to prove or disprove the power of the ceremonies performed in the darkness of Willowbend's cellar. What do you think of this story? Did Helena use psychological focus and careful planning, or did she truly harness an unknown natural law to bind the future to her will? Leave your comment below. I read every single one and I want to know what you think. If you made it this far, if this story moved you or terrified you, subscribe to The Forgotten Liturgy and hit that notification bell. Share this video with someone who appreciates dark true crime and forgotten history.